Welcome back. This is Public Affairs on Peach, and these numbers are astounding. 22 people a day die while waiting for an organ transplant. But our next guests have been given the gift of life. Lester Crowell joining us, a two-time heart transplant recipient, and Elijah Weiss. You received a kidney 6 years ago, but you're now on the transplant list again. We're going to start with you, Elijah. Tell us your story.
I was diagnosed with end-stage renal disease in December of 2008. It was detected after a routine checkup with my doctor, end of the year, checking everything out, spending the flexible spending money, if you will. And my doctor indicated that I was going to kidney failure. I started dialysis in center the following January, and I continued doing dialysis first in center and then at home using home hemodialysis for about 4 years and 10 months. I moved back to Atlanta to be closer to family, and on October 3rd of 2013, I received a call from Emory University telling me that there was a kidney available and I was on the wait list. I was the alternate. So I gathered my family, we went in, and it turned out that the kidney was a great match for me. I had the surgery, and life kind of resumed as normal. I began working with the Transplant Foundation about 6 months after the transplant, wanting to give back in a way that I could, doing advocacy work and educating dialysis patients about transplant. And then I returned to work almost a year to the day after my transplant, which was a goal of mine to do that. I was doing well for about 3 years, and then I got sick, and after a couple of weeks of fighting it, I was hospitalized and eventually lost the transplant. I rejected it. Started dialysis over again. I continue to work and continue to remain hopeful that I'll be blessed with another gift of life. But in the interim, I live one day at a time and give thanks for every day that I have available.
Well, Elijah, we are praying for you. And Lester, your story, probably similar in nature, waiting after you knew you needed a heart. Tell us about what happened.
Well, I was diagnosed with genetic heart defect. It started affecting me when I was 13. At 43, I was in congestive heart failure. I was put in the hospital to run the test to see if I was, available to get a transplant. 5 days later, they called me. So that was a quick transplant.
Yes.
I didn't wait very much. I didn't even have time to think about it, really. And then after about 8.5 years, I started getting chronic rejection, something that happens sometimes, and they put me on the list again. That time I waited a year. So I got my first heart transplant April 2000, April 15th, actually, tax day.
Uh-oh, it's coming up.
Yep. They handed me the tax bill and boom, that did it. But the second one was December 4th, 2010. And so I'm sort of 19 years as of April into a heart transplant.
And you're not forgetting about it. You do something at a salon where you manage. What is it that you do?
Well, at 313 Salon Spa Boutique, we do an event called Angels of Life. This year it's October 13th, my birthday. It's our 9th year. We have a silent auction. We have a fashion show with hair and makeup, and we tell stories about people that have had organ donation and what happened and how they're doing now. We do a live auction, and it's a real fun night. Yeah. We're going to hit $500,000 this year in donations to the Georgia Transplant Foundation.
That is wonderful. And you give back, as you said, you work now for the Agency for Lifelink.
I work for the Transplant Foundation, and I've done volunteer work for Lifelink as well.
Which is wonderful. If you had something, before we leave, to say to people at home that are thinking about being organ donors, what would you tell them?
I think Lester and I are great examples of the result that happens when you choose to either donate as a living donor in the case of a kidney, or as a deceased donor in the case of a heart transplant recipient. And we are the face of what that looks like.
How about for you, Lester?
I would say the same. I'm here 20 almost years, and I wouldn't be. So, we appreciate everyone who is an organ donor. It means a lot.
Is it something you would have ever thought about if you didn't need one?
I had a heart condition since I was 13, so it wasn't a shock to me It wasn't something that just sort of happened all at once. I lived with that condition for a long time. So they sort of told me when I was young I was going to need something. So, I did sort of think about it. But when the time came, it was a shock.
Right. How about for you, Elijah?
I was listed as an organ donor on my license prior to needing to receive one myself. So
Never any fear? Because people always say there's a fear about being a donor.
I'm a person of faith, but I also believe that I can't take it with me. And I met organ recipients when I was younger, so I knew the benefit of it. And after educating myself and talking to many of my doctors, I came to feel a level of comfort with the process, both as a recipient and as a potential donor.
Elijah, Lester, thank you so much for sharing your stories. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you. And when we come back, how you can help with your time or your money, or even give the gift of life yourself if you aren't already an organ donor, where you can register. We'll be right back.